Okay. Notice of public hearing, I'm calling to order. This meeting will now come to order at 6:30. The secretary will now call the roll. Is Lisa on there? Is Lisa on there? I don't. Lisa? Are you?
Davila, is Davila
Here.
Mellon? Ouimet? Rastrelli? Wellington? Yaffe here, vote?
Here.
Yes, I got everyone except Laura Mellon. Is that correct?
Yeah, she'll be joining us any minute.
She will be joining us late.
All right, thank you.
Second thing is, do we have any questions or on the 2020 property tax levy? Okay, citizens comment. Do we have anyone present this evening virtually who wishes to address the board? I'm counting on you. Nobody? Okay.
No.
All right. All right. Okay, so if there's no further business to come before the board, the meeting stands adjourned. May I have a motion to move to close this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Ouimet? Davalos? Mellon? Oh, sorry. Rastrelli?
Yes.
Wellington?
Yes.
Yaffe, yes, vote.
Yes.
6:32.
Okay. So now. On high school 120. Following, the meeting will now come to order at 6:32. And could you please call the roll one more time?
Davalos?
Here.
Mellon? Ouimet?
Here.
Rastrelli?
Here.
Wellington? Yaffe here, vote.
Here.
6:33.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of give this as a reminder before we get started because we're wearing masks and we're on virtually. If anyone virtually can't hear us, please let us know, but we will try and speak loudly and clearly so you can hear us. All right, do we have anyone present this evening who wishes to address the board virtually? Okay, no one's made any comments. So the next thing we have is the consent agenda. Are there any questions before we voted on the consent agenda? Okay,
I have
And-
one
go ahead, Lisa.
question for Andy. In the expenses, I noticed that we have like 20,000 going out to Lakeside Transportation and 19 to CEDAL and 30,000 to Tech Campus. That's for November 11th through December 9th. Are those monthly expenses that we're incurring actual services for, even in the pandemic?
Yeah, with Lakeside, yeah, those are actual expenses. They could be anything from some special ed routes that we have, and some athletics and things like that. It's not a whole lot of stuff, but they are actual routes. So that's expenses for that. CEDAL is just our normal tuition that we pay to them. Jamie could probably explain a little bit more about that as far as what services are being rendered for that, or as far as virtual classrooms and things like that. And what the third one was?
Tech Campus.
Oh, Tech Campus, same thing there. I think there's virtual classes going on there, just like we're doing now, and so we still pay them tuition for those pieces.
So these are probably lower figures than they would normally be, but they're there for services that are actually happening.
Well, definitely on the Lakeside, it's way lower than what our normal monthly expenses would be for them.
I can answer for
Okay.
the if you'd like, yeah, for
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
special education, it's the student's full program is fulfilled through CEDAL. And then even in the case, actually, we actually conducted a IEP meeting today for a student with Tech Campus. So in those avenues, the full programming exists in the virtual model. And so they're still getting, you know, their case management, their social work, their related services, whatever they might be. If a student, for example, is in the CEDAL programming, and same with our private therapeutic days, Lisa. So they're getting the full program with some of our private therapeutic days are in person. CEDAL is kind of at pace with we look very similar to CEDAL in terms of the in-person versus remote.
Okay, helpful. Thank you
Yeah,
both.
no problem.
Okay, Laura Mellon entered open session at 6:36. If you could note that, Lisa. Gotcha, Laura. Okay, is there any other questions on the consent agenda? Okay, I need one motion.
So moved. Second.
Since I'm virtual, I can't quite tell, and with you guys with masks, can you say your name before you make a motion so I know who was first and who was second?
Who was first?
And Aaron was second.
Great. Peter, Rastrelli,
Yes.
Wellington,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. Vote,
Yes.
Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
and Wimet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, again, if anybody can't understand, just let us know. The next thing we have on the agenda is, did anybody have any questions following the Monday call? Okay, we're all clear. Okay, we will now hear the report, District 120 report from the business office.
Okay, we've got 3 items for the business office. The first one is the tax levy. You guys heard the full report on it at the November meeting. There's nothing that has changed then. It's just we have to go through certain processes legally to get the levy approved. And last month you approved the estimated levy, and then there was a advertisement that was made for this public hearing for tonight for anyone that would want to come and ask any questions about the levy. We did that already. So tonight is just for you guys to approve the levy and ask me any questions if anything came up in the ensuing month here as far as the levy goes. Just a quick little review of a couple quick numbers here. The levy is pretty much, we're estimating it to stay exactly with CPI. And that's because we have such low EAV growth and low new properties. So, and it really has averaged pretty much what CPI has been over the last 10 years. So our levies have not been outpacing inflation. So that's good news. Also, the other piece that's interesting is that since 2014, when we had our highest tax rate, when it peaked because of property values going down for so many years, and they've been going back up, our actual tax rate's actually gone down about 12% in the last 5 years. So those are all good news pieces. So I'm open to any questions you may have, if there's anything that you've thought of in the meantime about the tax levy. Otherwise, we're recommending that you pass that tonight, and then I would file it this week at the Lake County Clerk's office. We wouldn't know the actual tax rate until we get numbers back from Lake County. Usually around spring break is when they'll publish those, and then the first tax bills for this levy would go out then in May. So, any questions?
All right, thank you, Andy.
Okay, the next one is student fees, and this will be for next school year. We're not recommending any increase in fees or change in fees. They've stayed pretty level for a number of years. So we're not recommending any changes in that for the following fiscal year. That'd be 2021-22. Any questions on student fees?
Andy, I got a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Maybe not tonight because it'll take you to crunch numbers, but what would it take for us to eliminate fees altogether?
It wouldn't take much. I mean, you guys just have to vote on it. But But as far as the financial impact of it, it'd be pretty substantial. The biggest one, of course, is registration fees. And I did do a few little calculations on that, just so you guys have those numbers for tonight. But the registration fees, we collect about $375,000 a year. So that's the biggest one by far. So that's a substantial chunk of change, and it would be a major hit to the budget if that were removed. We're kind of middle of the road as far as fees goes with other high school districts in Lake County. We're certainly not the lowest, but we're far from the highest as well. Generally, this probably doesn't seem fair, but probably some of our neighbors to the south and east of us have lower fees than the ones to the north, where folks aren't as well off, or have higher fees. So that's generally the way it runs. And of course, we're typically in the middle of the pack there. So that's what our fees look like. As far as parking fees and athletic fees, those probably run about $70,000 each for each of those two pieces that we collect in total. Again, either one of those wouldn't be a huge hit to the budget. But when you start stacking them together like that, then it's a lot of money. Music fees, it's not a whole lot. It's about $25,000 a year. The yearbook's about $20,000, and that really just covers their expenses for buying the yearbooks and that sort of thing. Driver's ed, let's see, did I give you that one? Yeah, that's not a big one either. We generate about $20,000 a year on that. But again, the biggest one is for sure those registration fees. And again, that's about $375,000, $100,000 a year.
Andy, did I miss what was the athletic? What was that number?
Total, we get about $70,000 a year total from that. And I did a little research, and I looked back in 15, 16, we did drop that fee. So that was reduced. And before that, the year before, I looked to see, and we got about $130,000 in athletic fees before we dropped it. And then we've been averaging about $70,000 since. So it was almost cut in half as far as the fee revenue generated when that change was made.
So the question I guess I'd ask is posed by Tom is, as a board, and Tom, I don't want to put words in your mouth. No, as a board, do you want us administratively to look further into our fee structure and to look at different proposals and our fees? How is it, be able to address how does it align to equity? Because I guess I'd ask, what's the why for dropping fees as a board? Would you want to be able to do that? And I think that's where a discussion for the board should happen. Tom's posed the question, do we want to look at modifying a fee structure? We're not recommending that right now, but it's certainly something that we could look into moving forward.
And yeah, and just to add on that, my question was more based on our equity discussions, like you were saying, and not tonight we scrap fees or anything, but in the future, for years now, we've been talking about the equity piece where some kids are not participating in, some things, especially athletics and probably the arts because of that fee, so it's a hindrance. So I just want to, maybe in the future, near future, look at that impact and what it would mean if we were to eliminate that or reduce it to get more participation, because we've seen those studies where the more they participate, the better students they are and they're more engaged in the school. And Troy Perola was our athletic director, gave us that for the last couple of years now, telling us, that is an issue.
Well, and to go along with that issue, if we would waive those fees, we would get more participation. Another thing that I think affects our participation is transportation. And what would the cost if we wanted to run a late bus later? Because of our space constraints, we have practices at lots of different times, often late. I know my daughter played basketball, and sometimes practice from 7 to 9. And if you don't have someone who can come get you, well, then you can't participate. So that might be something in conjunction with that to look at. If we would provide more late buses, how much would that cost?
This is Lisa. I totally am supportive of the conversation we're having right now about our ongoing structure and what our barriers might be to participation, and I think that's very important. I'm also wondering if we don't need to think about about our waiver process for the short term, given what the next year might be like in terms of some families and their the impact of the pandemic and some sort of recovery. So I don't know how long it might last, but we might want to look at how strict we are with waivers or how loose we are with it, so that we are giving some relief to families who might be in economic straits due to the pandemic.
That's your homework right there. Can you look into that?
But
What
I
it
want
would
the
be?
board, are you in agreement with that going around? Because I heard a couple things. What I've heard is the board is asking potentially to look at least athletics and extracurricular activity fees and our waiver process going into next year based off of what we've been experiencing through the pandemic, and do an analysis on that in those two different areas.
Yes.
Laura Mellon, you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I thought we already have a pretty robust waiver program for the athletics and extracurriculars. Am I right, Andy?
Yeah, we do. It's like any program, it's not perfect, that's for sure. A lot of times, we depend on people to come to us, and sometimes the barrier there is just people, they don't want to bring their financial situation to us. It might be embarrassing to people to do that. And a lot of times, some folks will, but many, I suspect, and I have no way of knowing this for sure, but I suspect there are many more out there that could take advantage of it. But we depend on other avenues, like Jamie will tell me stuff, or Mike Pope or Sol will tell me specific situations, and they'll advocate for families. But I wouldn't have known those otherwise unless somebody had brought them to my attention. So it's just a matter of, I think we could probably get more people on waivers if we just knew that they were there, who had the need, I guess is probably the easiest way to put it.
So I guess for me, I'm rather than to just get rid of the fees altogether, I would like to figure out some way to make, maybe there's some anonymity piece or something that we can look at with the waiver process to see if there's some way to just expand upon that.
If I can jump in. So what I'm hearing is there's an element of the fee structure. There's an element of student participation, as Tom pointed out, that we know is tied to student performance. What I'm not necessarily hearing yet is what's the measurable? What's the outcome that we're looking to see change? Are we going along with the idea that the research says if you have increased extracurricular participation, you get increased academic performance from students, and as a result of that, you get a decrease in the amount of support perhaps that students are needing? Or I guess what I'm looking at is if we are going to analyze what programs exist, what programs don't exist but need to exist, are we then able to tie that to some type of an outcome that we are evaluating the efficacy of the program? I would love to waive fees. I want it to be beneficial for the student. I want the financial stability of the district to maintain itself. So I would want to see this program or this analysis be tied to some outcome that we can measure, because we're talking about some tight financial times ahead of us. We're also talking about tight financial times for our families. So those kind of, if this or that would make sense.
Well, let me just tag on to that for a second. But for 4 years now, we've had Troy Perola come up with his presentation about athletics and shows the GPA of students who are in sports, the GPA of students who are not in anything. And the overwhelming result is if you're engaged in a sport, and just a sport, it's not performing arts or anything. I'm sure performing arts is even more. If you're engaged, yes.
His speech includes it.
Well, that's you're right. It was clubs and activities.
Clubs and activities.
The performance of the overall student is just skyrockets so much better when you're involved in this stuff. And we've been hearing that for years now. But we've also heard from staff And that there's a lot of students that we don't even know, what Andy just touched on, that don't even want to come to us. They know they can't afford it. They're not going to come to us and tell us, so they don't participate at all. And I'm not saying today you cut the fees, but at some point we're denying equity. We're denying those kids who $250 to you and me could be completely different to somebody else. And they won't come to the school, or they won't go to their parents and say, hey, can I have $350 to do lights and sounds? And they know the answer is going to be no, from their parent. They know they can't afford it. Somehow we have to get to the point where, speaking equity, what we've done in the last couple of years is that we enable that student to participate and not have a fee be the barrier, to that. And then that's all I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I agree based on what we've been hearing, that what that implies is that increased participation is in and of itself what we would be going for as an outcome, because with that participation means that more students are able to access the activities. It's because of the fee waiver or because of the additional transportation support or whatever. Additional participation is the sign that we are giving more people access to those experiences.
And just one last thing, and you are correct, Laura, what Laura brought up, I didn't even think of that part, that if you do this, you get the participation goes up. Now there's more fees involved with the busing. So all it is just to look at it and see what it would mean to do it.
Well, when I brought up transportation, because I know that it is an issue of odd times, even for myself, that you're not always there to pick up your freshman or your sophomore. And it would be helpful for us to know how much additional money would it cost to run an extra couple routes, and how many. I know we run one at 4:30, but the practices run at all different times and in different places,
Right?
Because we have a limited space. So that's something we're looking at long term for a field house, so we have more space. But I think the transportation cost would be a key, because that is another factor. Maybe they can make the fee, but if they can't get transportation to the sport.
Right.
So what I heard, that we'll do an analysis with the fees, at least what that would entail. We will focus primarily on the athletic and extracurricular, look at what additional costs might be there. Put together what we think would be appropriate measurables, should we decide to take that path, so that we can monitor that. So it's just not we're doing this and it's over with. We'd want to have some outcomes to that. And then the second part of that would be, and we do this pretty regularly, is look at our waiver process. And I think there's some things that we can do there. Working with Andy's department, we always try to compare our feeder school districts at 120 to see if the numbers that are coming in are comparable with what the students were before entering in 9th grade, and making sure we're reaching our families. And that's something we do typically annually, so we can keep doing that. And we'll bring both those back to you at a future board meeting.
Okay. Anything else?
Have we finished on the fee discussion, or? Okay, the next one is memorandum of understanding. I don't know if you guys can pull that up. You guys had approved a memorandum of understanding earlier this fall. These are both around athletics. The first one you guys approved was just to change. It was just acknowledging the change of the seasons that had happened with IHSA, where they had moved them and changed the actual dates of those. So, and which sports were in certain seasons. This particular one is about how much we pay for stipends. There was a lot of discussion about and concern about different sports and whether they would even happen or not earlier on in the fall. So myself, Troy, Dean Petros, and Raul Sethna all met together to talk about stipends, because that is something that's a contractual item. So we had to talk those through with the MEA. And what we landed on, and we had some pretty long discussions and talked quite extensively about it to make it as fair and take into account all the different pieces that come in. What we ended up with is for head coaches that they would at bare minimum get 50% of their coaching stipend. And the thought there was that most head coaches put a lot of time in. It's not just the season. They do a lot of work outside the season, working with their kids, with their coaching staff, with planning, and that can vary from sport to sport. But one thing we agreed on, we didn't want to try to parse out who was doing more than another, just to be fair to everybody. So whether sport happens or not, and I think our goal is, of course, is to have all of them, and I think that's the IHSA's goal too. It may not look the same or be as long of a season, but the goal is to have them all participate and have them have their seasons this year. Just to, it may not be the same season they're used to, obviously, with sports like football or wrestling. So the head coaches would get 50%, and then the rest of their stipend would be based on how much of the season in 2-week increments that they actually do. So that would be up to Troy and his staff to figure out and then get back to my staff in terms of paying them. But all head coaches at all the different categories would get at least their 50% of their stipend. And again, that recognizes the work that they do outside of season, but it also recognizes that we want to say, we're not just going to cut you off at the knees because of COVID. We value the work that you do. We want you to be here next year. We understand there's a lot of stuff that's done outside the normal season. All of those things we want to recognize, and that's where that at least the 50% comes in. For assistant coaches, of course, it's not as big of a commitment. They will do also things outside the season, but it's not the same commitment that a head coach has. So for all assistant coaches, it would be guaranteed 25% of their stipend, and then also the 2-week increments during the season. And again, that would be something that Troy and his staff would have to figure out and then send to the business office in order to pay. We also, again, to recognize that the work that everybody's doing and all of our coaching staff is doing is that they would all get 1 year of experience on the salary schedule, or I should say the coaching stipend schedule for this school year. So that was put in there as well. So that's this memorandum of understanding, and we're recommending that you approve it. Again, this was something that was gone through quite extensively with both the administration and the MEA leadership, and we felt this was the fairest way to administer stipends in this crazy COVID year. So any questions on this?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. I want to recognize Troy and his crew as well. I think we've probably seen more pep talks and positive tweets and keep your head up and we'll get through this. And, you know, it's kind of like reliving, I don't know, the 1970s and 80s, coaches in the tunnel trying to get their guys and gals through this tough time. And I just want to say how I appreciate it. To see this athletic season be taken away from the kids, it's one thing, and we know it hurts. I think it hurts our coaches a lot too. But they're doing their best, I think, to keep the positive attitude in their athletes. So I really appreciate that.
I also want to acknowledge just the effort that went into this. I think this is an excellent idea to take care of the coaches. I know a lot of them, especially in the fall, were putting in all sorts of time and doing whatever they could with the kids. So I think it's really great that you guys came up with this.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, we appreciate all the effort and the committee work and meetings. So looks like a good plan. Anyone else? Laura, Lisa, any comments? Okay.
That's it for the business office.
All right, next is superintendent office.
So up first, we're going to come back, a little follow-up for planning for second semester. So to start off, Stacy's going to begin. She's going to give me an update on some of the progress and updates, what we've been doing in the remote model. She'll then provide a kind of an insight into where we are going with our hybrid plan that was presented at the last meeting And then I'll conclude that part with the second semester update with our staff transition plan that we've got in place. So without further delay, Stacy, you've got the floor, or screen, I should say.
Hi, everyone. And are you gonna share the screen or do you want me to? There we go. Okay, I was told I have 7 minutes. So I'll try my best. I think they were joking. I hope they were joking. All right, so I want to just give you an update on where we're at with our schedules and where we anticipate going in the next semester. So Anna, if you could advance to the next slide. So I want to give you an update on our remote bell schedule. So we have surveyed our staff, our parents, and our students. We did that in October, and we're actually planning another survey for the end of semester 1. Some of the feedback that we've gotten on our remote schedule, particularly from teachers, is they love the 75 minutes because it provides them a lot of flexibility. So some teachers, for example, are starting the lesson with synchronous or live instruction. And then they're doing an asynchronous activity where the students are actually in breakout rooms. They can turn their screen off and they can mute and they can do their assignment. And then the teacher pulls everyone back towards the end of the lesson to wrap up and to check on student progress. Other teachers have taught the first part of the lesson and then they dismiss students in order to work with small groups of kids. And sometimes they need the full 75 minutes. Teachers have gotten really creative. For example, I was in a mock trial. They did a virtual mock trial and the teacher needed the full 75 minutes. So we received a lot of positive feedback. The yellow day, the Wednesday, in the beginning, we did get some concerns from teachers. The periods are really short. We're going through the whole schedule. But the feedback we've gotten from teachers and students, once we've kind of gotten used to it, is actually Wednesday is a really great day to check in with all the students and then work with small groups or individuals who maybe need some extra support or they need a check-in. And so the remote schedule is functioning pretty well. I mean, I feel it is the best choice in a remote environment. So if you could move to the next slide, please, Anna. Okay, so we are going to follow the remote bell schedule until we move into a phase 3 hybrid. And one of the things, we talked a lot about this. We talked about it with our teaching and learning committee and our leadership team and our steering committee. And we felt we didn't want to move to the hybrid schedule, which we'll review that in just a moment, until we actually had students in the building on a hybrid. So as I talked about before, there are so many benefits to that remote schedule. And honestly, until students are in the building, we don't see the need to shift. Staying on the remote schedule until students are in provides our students and families with consistency. Honestly, until very recently, we have not had students showing up for the wrong Zoom on the wrong period. And sometimes it's kind of comical. No, I'm sorry, Mary, you're actually coming in an hour and a half, not right now, log in later. So our students are finally getting the hang of the schedule. We want to try to keep that consistency because as we know, with the metrics and the way things are going kind of up and down, we're not sure when we'll have students back in the building. So we are communicating, we will communicate the updated hybrid schedule to parents and students before or over winter break. So our families do know what to expect, but we will stay in the remote schedule again to provide that consistency for our students and families. And Anna, if you want to advance. All right, so this is an update on the new hybrid. So it's been just had some tiny tweaks since the last couple of times it's been shown to you. One of the things that we really committed to on the teaching and learning committee was trying to make sure that those periods are as long as possible. Again, we're getting really positive feedback from that 75-minute period. And so we're trying to replicate that as much as possible. But as we know, there's kind of the lunch restriction because that is not something that we can safely do at the moment. So we're able to kind of squeeze out 55-minute periods which will still give teachers ample time to work with both large group and small groups of students. And then as you can see, we have lunch where we're then transitioning into that asynchronous afternoon. The Teaching and Learning Committee is meeting this week to finalize what the asynchronous time will look like. Some of the things that we have considered doing is students would obviously have assignments from the 4 classes that they are experiencing in the morning, that they're scheduled for in the morning. So they would have some application work to do in the afternoon. And then teachers will have office hours and also be available during some of that asynchronous time so they can ask questions and gather some feedback in order to keep moving along. One of the other things that we've talked about with that afternoon time is potentially looking at ways that we can bring other students in the building who are struggling with remote learning. We started home visits this week. We just want to check on some students and make sure that they're doing okay and see what additional assistance or resources that we could provide. And obviously, remote learning isn't a one-size-fits-all, concept. Some students are really thriving with remote learning, and others are struggling a little bit because it's such a different instructional platform. And so I think having that afternoon and being able to work face-to-face with students who need something different would be very helpful. And so we are looking at the options for that in terms of transportation and scheduling teachers and those kinds of things. So we are, again, working to finalize that afternoon schedule, and we'll have that all by the end of next week. So I will stop there. Kevin's going to take the last slide in this part, and so I will answer any questions that you have.
Question, Stacy? I know it's only been a little over a week, but at the end of November, we implemented a camera default, video default. How is it going? What have you heard? What's the update?
Yes, so teachers love it. Love it, love it, love it. Our freshmen are amazing, honestly. You tell freshmen to do something, they all do it. So we have nearly 100% compliance in the majority of our freshman classes, and it's been a game changer for the interactions, the climate, right? And the teachers being able to read students, right? Read their expressions to know when they've got it or when they're confused. I've been in a lot of classrooms lately, and I can tell you, for me, it's just so different. I work with a lot of students in small groups to give them some extra support. And when you're working with a person one-on-one or a small group, it's so great to see their faces. Some of the other pieces of feedback that I've gotten, and this was one of the things that we were concerned about, is behind a black screen, it's difficult for students to stay focused. So sometimes they're not in a place where they can learn best, i.e. their beds. Sometimes they're on their phones or they're stepping away and doing something else. And so the camera policy has helped eliminate that. And so we do, our grade data is improving. It's improving every day. Part of that, honestly, is we see this every year. Towards the end of the semester, we see, students become very committed and really buckle down. So it's hard to say that it's, the camera policy is leading to or causing improved student performance, but it definitely can't hurt it. One of the things, and I actually was going to send communication out to our families so our parents can help support this. We are seeing a little bit of this. Well, you can see my forehead, so it's okay. Or I have a really great ceiling. It's like, no, the expectation is we see our face because there's no point, right? In just the forehead. So we're working through that, but yeah, it's been a really short time. I think that it will start to become the norm next semester. So at least I know you were a supporter of that, and I thank you because I do think it's a game changer. Other questions for me?
Stacy, I really don't have a question. I just want to comment on the new hybrid schedule with the 2 to 2:50 office hours. I just want to thank you and your staff and your team and the teachers for this commitment, because we've talked about it for months, how that struggling student remote needs to come in and get that in person. So I hope we can start this right away next semester, because that, what you guys put together is so ideal for this. So thank you.
Yeah, and we and thank you for those comments. And some of the things we're playing with actually is, you know, I know we can't do lunch for half the school, right? But having, so if a student is with us on Monday, right, and they finish out 7th period, then can we serve them lunch, social distance, safe location, right? And then actually just keep them there for the afternoon? Because I do think, again, just in talking with parents and students of students who are struggling, it's not that they don't have the ability to be successful, right? It's just sometimes it's very hard to focus. I mean, I come into the school building every day because I struggle to work from home because there's so many different distractions for me. And I think our students are experiencing the same thing as well. And so, you know, transportation, we can talk about bringing, you know, students in, but, you know, we already have them in the building, fingers crossed, right, at some point next semester. Why not keep them for the rest of the day to help them work on those assignments that they got in the morning? Other questions? Okay, thank you. Looks like Kevin, you're up.
Got it. The next one is bringing to you the staff transition timeline, turning into second semester. Before we go in through the dates as they've been outlined, I do want to give a big commendation to our board members that have participated in the process. Tom was participating on the steering committee as we've talked through this. Peter's been working on the metrics committee along with Laura Mellon as we went through and put the procedures to place. In all those meetings, we've had a number of individuals working within our school system that are representative of the employees they work with. And it's been a very good, healthy conversation throughout the process that I believe we've come to a very good solution for being able to help with our staff transitioning in, being prepared for when our students do return. The guidelines that we've put in place are in line also, because we need to look with other districts, because I think we need to look what other districts are doing as well, because we know there's impacts between the different communities as well that take place when you have some adults coming back to the building, others are not, that I think have all been accounted for as we went through this. So with that, what we did is work together and say, we're going to continue to encourage our staff to keep coming into the building now through January 8th. We know we have somewhere around 30 to 40% of our staff at any given time will be in the building. We still want that to continue. Then starting on January 11th, we will have at least staff members in 1 day a week, starting to get more acclimated through the process with what we're doing, looking at protocols, setting up classroom, and getting more familiarized and starting to reconnect back with colleagues as well as we integrate back into this process of our staff being back in the building. So we're prepared for when our students do return. The next phase really is that starts at January 25th, where all staff will then be in at least twice a week on the periods or the days that they teach the majority of their classes, their dominant classes. So for example, if I teach 3 out of my 5 periods on Red Day, I know I'm in the building every Monday and Wednesday teaching all those classes. So more accessibility, more familiarity, working the group. We as a district know we can still make sure that we have safety protocols put in place, social distancing can still be maintained. So it's created a much more effective environment to start off for bringing people back. People can still keep coming into the building that have been, so it doesn't stop that at all from happening. The opposite days, I would still be working remotely from home. The gray days, essentially it's the other half of the staff, they would be coming in on the gray days, which would be Tuesdays and Fridays, to conduct their classes for the students. And then when we hit phase 2, according to the metrics that are provided to us through the Illinois Department of Health, that's our trigger. All staff are back in the building because we know then we're at the point where we're close to our students all being back in the building. So what I really appreciate about this conversation that we had in the dialogue with our unions and our board members and all of us here was that we acknowledge that the numbers could move faster and we could be back sooner. And the one thing that I wanted to make sure we see, if we get down to the area where we're in phase 3 for us for bringing the students in, we may be starting this prior to January 22nd, 5th, which I think is critical. And our staff has acknowledged that. Our board members that run those meetings have acknowledged that this provides us the opportunity to bring staff in, get it acclimated, and still be prepared that we could be having our students in at any moment. So we're bringing this to you so you're informed. It's one of the things that you asked us to do at the last board meeting, to have a timeline put in place for staff returning January 11th. We feel we've been able to do that with this plan. And we'll look, I'd like to hear back from Peter, Tom, Laura, you've been on the meetings. Any feedback that you'd have or want you'd like to share about this timeline?
Sure, I can chime in. I think the collaboration that took place was remarkable. It was, there are a lot of sensitive issues that we're having to field and manage and put ourselves in other people's shoes. And I think the way that the committee I was on with metrics and still on with the metrics, I was impressed by how it was handled. I think there's also some recognition that the goal is obviously to have the students back, but in order to achieve that, we need our teachers. And looking at a way to make that happen, that takes into account all the different aspects that are necessary, whether it's physical space, environmental cleanliness, managing our own concerns or fears or personal experiences with COVID, having desires to be back, socially connected with our colleagues, or showing our students that we can do this, we can do it together, and that there are ways to do it safely. I think our committee recognized that, and that allowed us to continue to move forward. So it's, I think it's more than just a step in the right direction. It's a pathway, and I obviously we're on it, and I'm excited to get to the other side of 2020 and start 2021 to see this in place.
I agree, 100%. It was like Kevin, you hit the nail on the head. It was a very collaborative effort. It was nice to see all 3 groups represented and come to this agreement. So it wasn't like there was no line in the sand drawn. It was everybody agreed on this, and it was it's best for our district. And I think it's overall, compared to other districts, I think we're ahead of the game.
I would concur. So we're looking forward to our back. Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo really the same thing that Peter and Tom said. I think it was this was something that people worked very hard. There's a part of me, and I can imagine other people that are kind of saying, oh gosh, why can't we just make this happen quicker? But when you look at all the things that go into actually making the hybrid schedule work, and I think that Peter alluded to some of them, and certainly technology and how to manage some of the kids who are still learning remotely while you're also teaching kids in the classroom. It's a whole new ball game. And so I really appreciate that the staff is going to have a chance to kind of experience it as it goes along, so that when we're ready to go, they feel comfortable with it. So, kudos to everybody. And as much as we all want to get back and really have it happen, there's a lot of background that has to take place. And I appreciate that this is all been put together. So.
Okay. Very good. That would be the end of that section then. Ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Next one is a recommendation to reschedule the regular board meeting for January 5th to January 12th, just because that's coming off of the winter break. So trying to move that back to give more time to prepare for that. So that's a recommendation that for the board we would ask you to approve this evening. The next one then would be the school board policy 2265. That's in regards to Title IX, and that is the second and final reading That was one that we had originally approved, and then upon further review and with attorney feedback, was recommendation to not have the board be the hearing officer for those cases, that it should be somebody else that it does go to. So that's why we did bring it back to you as a board for reconsideration before having it become board policy.
Is there any questions on that one? Okay, I'm good.
This next one, as timing would have it, we're getting always near graduation, so policy 6300 is in regards to graduation requirements. When we moved back to a traditional schedule from the block, we needed to start the timeline of modifying those credits to align with the traditional schedule as the classes continue to graduate. Well, we're coming up to the time frame where the class to experience a block will be graduating, and we need to keep modifying those credits for the one last time. So that's what you'll see in your board packet. You're going to see the first reading now. You won't see it in January because press policy number 106 is out, and they've included this policy in there. So instead of going through it multiple times, we'll hold it and bring it back to you again at the February meeting when we bring the other ones as well. So you got a preview on policy 6300 right now, because we got this after we'd received press 106. So essentially what we're doing, we're changing just some of the verbiage on the credits that were required based on the year the students are graduating. Because obviously the credits were different between being in a block versus traditional schedule. So we're making those modifications. And then I believe the other one in there is the class rank. So this would be the final year for class rank that we'd have anything in our board policy related to that. So you have a little extra time to look through that one. Any questions in regards to that policy, at least right now? Okay. Your turn. So we had the virtual joint conference a few weeks ago. Everybody that said they were going had a chance to see some panel sessions. So right now is the opportunity for you as a board to share what you participated in and any takeaways that you would like to ask of us administratively to look into further, if you so choose. Who would like to start?
Who got to go and what did you see?
Did you go?
No.
Oh, okay. Also, I attended one of them. It's called The Great Opportunity, 21st Century Learning Through Community Engagement. And that was a presentation by District SD 99 out of Cicero. And really what it entailed was a partnership between really telecommunication companies, the schools, just everybody involved to make sure that all the students had basically, their Chromebook, and connectivity, stuff like that. They reached out, they had grants, that they have to, try to maintain because it's only for a certain number of years. But a lot of it was a video, and you saw these students, receiving this, and it was only 4 years ago. So think about it. That school district just got, the iPad, not the iPad, the Chromebooks, or 4 years ago, and we've had them for how many years? Whatever.
Probably at least almost 6 now.
Yeah, at least 6. So the biggest takeaway was when you saw the video and the kids, and you saw that it's a not the most wealthy school district, you thought, what a crime it is the way schools are funded. That school has to go through some hoops that a lot of other districts don't have. That really every kid should have access to the exact same thing, the same materials, and should not be denied things just because I'll leave it at that, I guess. It was frustrating, but at the same time, it's the joy on those kids' faces to get all that was just a neat thing to see. And that's all I attended that one session. But I will say it was just that one session. It was very, a lot of the message board was lighting up on how efficient and smooth this was versus the in-person. So I don't know what this is going to do with the next year. I'm sure there will be an in-person, when the pandemic's over. But there was just so much favorable comments saying, how, efficient this was run and how much they enjoyed it. So I don't know if that was, bots, doing that to keep it that way. But it was good. I mean, I just had to log in and then attend it. So.
All right, well, thank you.
Here,
I attended a presentation by the school district in Clinton, Illinois, that was about empowering students to support peers regarding mental health. And to be honest, it was another layer of heavy topic, and it was a good one, but it was a very emotional one. This school district lost numerous kids over the last 5 or 6 years to suicide, and what they recognized was that there was a void in their district in terms of how they can empower students to help each other to recognize signs of mental illness and to either directly or anonymously seek out support for their peers, which is, I think, often difficult for teenagers because a lot of the times teenagers go to teenagers to solve teenagers' problems. And that's what this school district recognized, was those who really knew the inner stories and struggles that these students were dealing with were the peers. So they did massive training of, I think, over 380 kids in their school. And it's a relatively small school district. That's a pretty large number of kids. And I think that continues. And it's some of their messaging was that these types of programs for training teens and peers tend to be, watered down programs from adults. And that these programs that they tapped into were more specific to mental health of teenagers. And they found that to be very helpful. Lady Gaga's foundation is a part of it as well. But they did admit there wasn't much involvement from that necessarily. Good tagline to kind of get your attention, I think. But in terms of, the stories that they shared, the challenges that they continue to face, even in a scenario where these kids were returning to school and anticipating anniversaries of deaths of other peers, it really put them in a challenging situation, particularly given the stress of COVID, but that given the training that they had gone through, the resources that they had tapped into, the knowledge that the kids had gained from their training, in some ways they were saying the timing of it probably put them in a better position to handle the mental health challenges of this pandemic that we all recognize are out there. Had they not had the training, it really could have been a much more significant challenge that in many ways, like we hear about, kind of goes under the radar until the situation is desperate. So, it was interesting, Tom, there were a lot of, typed in responses from those who were listening to this panel, and there was a lot of appreciation for putting themselves in kind of an uncomfortable situation to share this effort. And, and the challenges that we're all facing in the school districts, to see other members of school boards and administrations and parent communities support each other was a pretty powerful display that I don't think this school district necessarily thought they were getting into this for. You could tell they needed it. And, it just goes to show us that the mental health issues are more present than we realize. But what a program to help students, what a program to help the district, and to tap into some really good resources that are finally coming about to help this particular age group that historically maybe didn't have such programming available. So pretty powerful.
And I just wanted to add what you said about back to the chat room, because it did just show you how much people want to be together. The chat room was, a lot of it was a lot of, hey, hi, Laura, from just these people were just recognizing their names, and you could just tell in person, everybody would have been talking in concrete. So there is that connectivity that everybody wants to connect. And it was interesting to see them all do it online, in front while this presentation was going.
Right.
So,
yeah.
My question for you, so they got this program, is this something available to all high schools? How do they implement it? Is it something like?
Well, it was called mentalhealthfirstaid.org. And then there were a couple of others that they had tapped into. So
I mean, I can certainly pass it on. I don't know exactly all of the specifics within the state or our district that are available. If it's something that parallels some of the work that's been done here over the last couple of years. I know we've been targeting some of those areas, but I can pass it on.
I think it'd be good to pass it on. I know I wasn't able to attend this year, but I attended last year before and went to two mental health presentations. And I think we're focused on it, but we can always look at what other people are doing. And if it's something that we can help incorporate here, I think it might be helpful because as you said, with the pandemic, it just puts you in a better position to deal with some of the things. Because I think even when the pandemic's over, the financial stress of families is still going to be
Still be there.
Yep.
Peter, if you want to share, did they give you the contact from the school district or anything? If you want to get that to me and I can.
Yep.
follow up. Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter. Here?
No.
No. Or Lisa, did you have anything to share? No. Okay. All right, I think we're good on that then.
Okay. Then the last item was, I know going over the summary of the ISB resolutions that came up from the previous meeting we had. I know Tom represented the group there. Just making sure, I know everybody received a summary from them, but just wanted to make sure this was the first time we've been back together after discussing those. So wanted to give you the opportunity to be able to discuss anything that stuck out from those final adoptions. In your board packet, it looks like the gun safety one did not get adopted. Tom, you can fill in too if I missed something if you want, or.
No, that is true. I will say too, in terms of efficiency, this was a better process, to do all this because I think the very first time I was doing this, I think we were all going to try to get together for lunch one time, and I was just like, "This is taking forever," because you picture a room of 300. I think it was like about 380 delegates, I guess, of the 800 showed up. There was more virtual now, online because you don't have to drive all the way down to Chicago to be there. But before you picture this huge ballroom and there's like 1, 2, 3 podiums, and people are lined up to give their 2 cents. This way, having the 2 meetings, prior to all this, gave people that voice, to do all that, and then just get right to it, vote and then move on, type of thing, without the debate. So it was definitely a lot. I could see ISB having this at least part be virtual, in the future, because it was just so much quicker and more efficient.
So I think a couple other ones that you had talked about back in November were in regards to the teacher shortage. That's one that they looked at doing a provisional for licenses for all, and that was adopted to help alleviate some of the teacher shortage we're seeing. Also with doing the reauthorization in regards to charters and how those fundings take place was reinstituted as well. So trying to make sure most of the monies that are public school dollars go back to the public schools. The other one was the teacher prep program that was listed as far as having scientific proven methods regards to literacy and reading. That was not adopted by the group. And then the other one was the, what was the one? The gun safety measure. That wasn't not adopted either, with making sure that individuals had safes in their house for guns if there was concerns, which that was one I think we had quite a bit of conversation around also. And then the last one, and kudos to you as a board, the belief statement on educational equity was adopted. So that's something that they'll be sharing out with all the other schools in the state, and you're already working on one. So congratulations. That is it for my report.
All right, thank you. We're now moving on to voting on the motions or board action items. Is there any questions before I get started, before we get going? Everyone good? Yeah, I'm gonna read these nice and loud, so don't feel like I'm yelling at you, but I want everybody out there to hear me. All right, the first one is the 2020 property tax levy. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation
to approve the 2020 property tax levy as presented. I have a motion.
Motion by Weemat.
Second. Wellington.
Wimet,
Yes.
Wellington,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. Vote. Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Rastrelli.
Is the student fees for 2021 to 2022. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the school year 2021 to 2022 student fees as presented.
So moved, Rastrelli.
Seconded, Folk.
I'm sorry, I was confused. I thought the conversation we had was when we had the discussion was the discussion was that you were going to go research the student fees, but you wanted us to accept them tonight.
No, that was about not raising. We will have the same student fees for next year that we did this year. The athletic fees were what they were going to research.
Close.
Clubs and extracurricular activities.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right, so who was the first
Rastrelli. So moved.
and who was second?
Me, Lori.
Thank you. Rastrelli,
Yes.
Wellington, I'm sorry, vote.
Yeah.
Wellington, Yaffe, yes. Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Wimet,
The-
carries.
Section 15.3C, memorandum of understanding. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding section 15.3C, coaching stipends in the 2020-2022 Mundelein Education Association contract as presented.
So moved. Wellington.
Second, Weemat.
Wellington. Was that a yes?
Yes.
Wimet?
Yeah.
Rastrelli?
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. Vote.
Yes.
Davalos?
Yes.
Mellon?
Yes.
Okay, two more to go. Recommendation to reschedule a regular board meeting date. The recommended motion that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve rescheduling the regular board meeting for January 5th, 2021 to January 12th, 2021.
Mellon, so moved.
Davalos second.
Well done, guys. Mellon?
Yes.
Davalos?
Yes.
Wimet?
Yes.
Rastrelli?
Yes.
Wellington?
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. Vote.
Yes. All right, last one, here we go. School board policy 2.265, second and final reading. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of Mundelein High School District 120 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve school board policy 2.265 as presented.
Rastrelli. So moved.
Wellington, second.
Rastrelli?
Yes.
Wellington, yes. Yaffe? Yes. I'm sorry, Wellington? Wellington? Yaffe, yes. Vote.
Yes.
Davalos? Mellon?
Yes.
Wimet?
Now we know why. Keep that screen on.
All right, okay, we're all done with our voting work. We will now be going to executive session to discuss the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing the testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, and the discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for proposed of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06. Action may be taken as a result of executive session. I need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting so we may go into executive session.
So moved, Wellington.
Second, Davalos.
Wellington,
Yes.
Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Wimet, Mastrelli,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes, vote.
Yes.
Time 7:41.
7:41.
Hey, everybody, this is Luke from Technology here. So we're going to terminate the meeting. If you could just log right back in using the link that you were emailed to get into this meeting, so that we can move into executive session and allow you all to attend without broadcasting the meeting. So we'll terminate it now. Go ahead and find that email, click on that link, and rejoin the meeting.
Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thanks for those who watched. Good, okay, so now I have a motion to move back into open session.
So moved, Wellington.
Second, Davalos.
Just to clarify, is this a motion to move or is it like call to order? Is it attendance?
It's a motion to move back into open session.
Yeah, it's a motion to move back into open session, so you just have to
Okay.
do a roll call.
Got it. Wellington,
Yes.
Davalos, Mellon,
Yes.
Wimet, Rastrelli,
Hey.
Yaffe, vote.
Yes, okay,
9:06.
all right, so we have our recommended motion, so are we ready to make that? And then I'll have president's prerogative and then we will be wrapping up. So here we go for the recommended motion. That the Board of Education, Underline High School District 120, accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the executive session minutes for November 10th, 2020. So moved.
So move Mellon.
Seconded, Laura. Vote.
Mellon,
Yes.
vote.
Yes.
Davalos,
Yes.
Wimet, Rastrelli, Wellington,
Yes.
Yaffe, yes.
Let you know. Okay. All right, the last thing is president's prerogative. I'm sure you all got my email, but I just wanted to thank all of you for those who've been on the board a long time, and those who've just gotten on and had no idea what you were getting yourselves into right before this whole pandemic. But thank you everyone for whatever extra time you were able to commit, whether it be the committees or whatever help you offered the district. I wanted to thank you guys because I know this has been a challenging year and I'm happy to see it ending. This is our last meeting of 2020. I don't know that next semester is going to be a whole lot easier, but I think the end is coming in sight at least a little bit. So we've all managed to stay healthy so far. So I wish everybody a good, safe, happy, healthy holiday. Keep the social distancing up, keep wearing the mask. Kevin, you too, with the administrators, this has been a rough year and kind of a lot of effort and intensity. So I hope I never did hear, was the staff excited about having the school closed?
during,
During the winter break, yes,
Yes.
very much appreciative
okay,
of that opportunity, yes.
Good. good. Is there any other,
She's representing all.
and I'm just gonna let everyone kind of close out the year. Is there any comments about this year, the experience that you want to share real quick with us? Aaron? You're the
I
newbie.
just want to say, even though it hasn't been long, I've really enjoyed my time on this. I actually kind of didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'm just glad that I can be a part of it and help with some of the decision-making process. And to Kevin and the rest of the administrative team, just thank you for all your efforts. Probably a lot of late nights, probably not a lot of sleep some nights, and it's very, very much appreciated.
Peter?
Thank you all. 2020 was about the tunnel. 2021 is about the light. Let's focus on the light.
All right. Tom?
I've enjoyed the last, this year, despite the pandemic, enormously. I think just all of us working in that collaborative effort I think, I'm biased, but I think we've done a phenomenal job in Lake County by our district sticking to its decisions and not doing any yo-yo type thing with staff. There's no doubt that we've put the health of our students and our staff as a priority, and we've lived that and we've done it. Nobody can come back to us and say we've not done that. So I'm very happy with everything we've done, and I'm looking forward to 2021 and everybody being vaccinated.
Sarah?
Well, this 2020, how we always have like a vision at the beginning of the year or so where we'll take us or so, and trying to put that equity into our classroom or so, for the whole school or so. But even though it's been a very difficult challenge for everybody, but somehow we try to put that equity into our, whether it's a hybrid virtual or so. But we always, the staff and Kevin, always thinking about the community and the students and doing best. There was a lot of back and forth about the date, but our guess it was best for the students too, and for the health of all the families and community or so. So I look forward for a better new year, and I count my blessings every day, and I'm so grateful for having a job.
All right, Laura?
Well, I'm still kind of sad that we've had to go through this. I don't think I'm going to stop being sad until we're done. I'm still mad at the pandemic and COVID-19, and I won't be done with that for a long time. But I am so inspired and amazed by what people have done, and I have found that this challenge has made everybody look at new ways and better ways and of doing things, and the commitment and the hard work, the dedication of not just of our staff and our administration and our teachers, but our students and our parents and our community. It's truly amazing, and that part of it is the inspiration that helps us move forward so and get through this.
All right, Lisa?
It's been before the pandemic, Eli was doing an assignment, some sort of history or social studies assignment, where he had to watch a movie that talked about, it was showing what it was like on the home front here when World War II was happening and people were having to send their loved ones to war and not hearing from them forever, and communications and the sacrifices that had to be made. And it's helpful for me to remember that our country and our communities have been through really, really, really difficult times. And we have, in fact, in spite of the fact that we're losing some people and our poor healthcare workers are at the edge of things, overall, we're still able to be a community and support each other and provide education and demonstrate persistence and resilience and the love of learning. And so I'm just thankful that we have the professionals on staff that are willing to do that. And when it comes to board members, it's one of those times when I find myself wondering, now, why is it we do this? Why do we volunteer for this job? And I really think for me, it is, it happens to lean into my talents, but I also get to see the talents of people like you guys who are willing to do these late night meetings, the reading, and just take responsibility in our community. So thank you to all of you.
I think well, I would kind of just echo on everyone's. Tom, I think you're right. We did what's best for the community, our students and our staff. I think our community, although we didn't all agree all the time, I've never felt that our community didn't support the intentions that we had. I've never felt like I've seen districts around the area. It's gotten very disrespectful and contentious. And I felt like even though we may have disagreed on the means, we always came together in looking out for the best interests of our students and our staff. So I'm thankful that we live in a community that I didn't have to have a police escort to my car. And I've never felt that our community didn't want what was best for our students. And I'm thankful for our administrative community for whatever we asked of you. You really put a lot of time and effort in. So please make them know that, we realize it takes a village, and it took all of us working together to get to this point. And again, the light at the end of the tunnel is coming, so bring on the vaccine. So Kevin, any last words you'd like to share?
The one thing I'd like to say to the group is it's showing what's best about people and how you can come together. From an organization, I think what we are finding out is through this change process, we're learning more about ourselves and what we can do differently and better when we're back to where people are in the building all the time. We're learning better ways to be able to teach, better ways to be able to provide support. So we're going to be taking some of these strategies back with us when our students are back. And I can speak on behalf of the admin and our staff. They are so appreciative of you as a board because of how you have responded during this time. They certainly have felt heard, and that we've tried to take in their best interest along with our students to be able to come with outcomes that we think are best for all in the long term. So thank you for being that supportive group, because you allow us to do what we can.
All right, and on that, I guess everybody is probably ready to get out of here. So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sure. Davalos.
Second for Strelly.
Davalos,
Yes.
Mellon. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, stop. Rastrelli.
Aye.
Mellon.
Yes.
Ouimet. Wellington.
Yes.
Yaffe, yes. Vote.
Yes.
9:16.
Adjourned at 9:17.
9:17. Very good. Thanks all. Have a great holiday, great winter break.
We're going, sorry.
Oh, same way.